Is it live? Okay. Anyway, so what we have here is our final video for the spring 2020 semester. And what a semester it has been, right? What a cavalcade of nightmares and monsters. Well, it kind of makes sense that here we are and we're discussing the ending of Conrad's Heart of Darkness. There's so much wrong with this ending, and so much to be debated, and so much to just be frustrated with. And we're going to try to make sense of it. Well, if I remember last time, I gave you a discussion question about was it the wife or was it? I don't even remember what my own discussion question was. That's just the state that I'm in. Well, anyway, let's get just right back to where we were. So Marlowe, Conrad, and the team arrive at the station in the deepest, darkest heart of the Congo. And what they find there is not very pleasant. What they find is a Kurtz who has gone mad with power. And he has basically made himself into a god for the villagers and for the indigenous. And he is basically ruling like a god would. And we have the severed heads. We have the religious admiration of the indigenous people. And it's just very obvious that things are not good, right? This is worst case scenario, even worse than anything that we've had any hints towards. Now, oddly, and you see this a little bit in Apocalypse Now as well, Kurtz doesn't seem to be aware of just how far he's gone. He still holds on to this idealistic notion that what he's doing is for the best for the indigenous people involved, that he's basically creating a society where these people worship the colonial powers, worship like gods, the people who have come in to enslave and abuse them. And the refrain that he gives over and over again as things begin to fall completely to pieces is, there's so much more I could have accomplished. You didn't accomplish anything, Kurtz. You literally ripped a hole in the fabric of reality. You've unleashed horrific monsters upon the world. And you, like, the people who have come into this setting are seriously like, what have you done? Right? Now, Kurtz never seems to have an epiphany or an encounter with the truth of what he became. He still holds on to the notion that he could have created some type of better world. So anyway, the actual events around Kurtz escaping the camp, the guys just go in and take him. And it's quite a scene when the indigenous peoples basically have a primal roar that they don't want him to leave. And it turns into a fight, and it's ugly. And they pull Kurtz out forcibly and put his stinking, diseased, rotten body on the boat. And they're just going back, right? Like, we're not dealing with this. We're not cleaning up your mess. We're pulling you out, and we're getting the hell out of Dodge, right? Now, there's a couple of things in the dialogue in this story that are weirdly incongruent. If you go back and you look at all the events of Heart of Darkness, we don't really get a sense that there's any disapproval for Kurtz's methods from the higher-ups. It's not like, I mean, we have a few hints that farther down the river, things have taken a bad turn. But Kurtz has been meeting his ivory demands, and he's been shipping the ivory. And from what we know of the colonial powers at this point, they wouldn't have cared how he did it. They would have only worried about the quotas. The whole country was virtually a hellhole right now anyway. So the higher-ups back at the station, back at the mouth of the river, they could have cared less about how he got it. And yet, as Kurtz asks our narrator, what do you think of me? And he says, what do they think of me? Well, I think he even suggests, will I get some type of award with how good a job I did? And Marlowe / Conrad, our weird narrator that we can't quite pin down, basically says, they're going to hang you. And Kurtz is wounded by this. That might be the first time that he sees, oh, I'm a monster. But Marlowe, Conrad, does not really have much of a grounds to say they're going to hang you. There's really not much evidence that if Kurtz would even survived his trip back, that would be the punishment or the fate that was waiting for him. I mean, would they have cared? They've literally created a situation in the Congo where the hands of children are being traded openly for goods and for rations. I just don't think they would have cared about this, right? So already we have a sense of like false morality. Like he kind of wants to punch him a little bit. He wants to make him feel like he's hated. Now, the way back also weirdly has Kurtz's death. And what killed Kurtz? Guy can't walk. He's sick beyond sick. What does he have? It could be some type of wound that he got that got infected. It could be malaria. It could be yellow fever. Whatever it is, it doesn't matter. He's sick and he's dying. And he gradually begins to fade. He's not even going to meet any real sense of justice. There's no chance of that. He's going to die on the river. And that's a bit of the naturalistic, realistic era coming through, that we all want to see Kurtz's head get cut off. But that's not what happens to guys like this. They die in a comfortable bed of something that had absolutely nothing to do with their crimes, right? But except for one thing, one bit of justice that we get comes to when Kurtz is near death. And it's probably one of my favorite lines in all of literature. I know I have a lot of them, but this one's really, really good because of what it says, but mostly also because of what it doesn't say. Like I said before, Kurtz is still very much in La La Land because he hasn't really come to terms with the fact that, no, you are the demon. You are the person that has created this nightmare. You've not done any good at all. You've made things 10 million times worse. He doesn't seem to have confronted that, but his last words are barely above a whisper as he is weak and as he is sick and as he is dying. And he just says with his eyes open, the horror. The horror. Yeah, I know, right? You want a really good representation of this? Go back to Apocalypse Now. Apocalypse Now. One of the other big differences is that we get to see Willard, our protagonist, kill Kurtz. He kills him with a machete or something, and Kurtz is laying in the darkness, and his eyes are wide open. He's like, And here's a little bit of a discussion question for those of you who would like to try to snag a few more bonus points as we come towards the end. What did Kurtz see? What is the horror? What's haunting him? That's a really cool question because he's so weak and he's so sick and he's so far gone that all he can say is the horror. So what? What is it? I think if you stop and you think about it for a minute, I think we all have a pretty good guess as to what it is he's seeing or what he's feeling or what he's realizing is another good way of answering the question. Now, I love this book, and I've talked to a few of you via email and all that, and I get the feeling that the feeling is not mutual. That's okay. That's part and parcel for literature. There's a lot of books that I was forced to read, especially in graduate school, that were like, oh God, I'd never willfully read those books ever again. But I can look back on them and I can be like, yeah, that was an interesting experience, right? It had its merits. I hope that you guys can at least look on this book and see what is useful about the experience of it. What does it tell you? As we get to the very end, this is one of the single most frustrating things in literary history to me, because I hate the last chapter, the last bit. And I think that the last chapter actually, there's a lot of wisdom to it, but it's a very frustrating thing to read. As our narrator goes back and talks with Kurtz's wife. Now, what a scene. You have made your way into the center of the Congo to pick up this dude who is, turned this ivory trading station into like a weird god religious cult head. And he's cut off people's heads and he's mounted them on pikes. And he's taken a second indigenous wife that has kind of like a weird religious power over him. And his last words are the horror. And you go and you're going to go see his wife. What the hell are you going to tell her? And this is kind of another one of those weirdly morbid hilarity things to think about. Like, oh yeah, not only was he cheating on you, did he have a second flipping wife, but he was a sadistic, horrifying monster that is one of the paragons of evil that has ever existed in the world. And she's like, what were his last words? And he looks at this woman, and I had a student one time, and don't worry, this is going to connect. It's a fun story. I had a student one time send a print job, and another teacher was in this room that the printer, he sent it to the wrong printer. And the thing he was printing out had a lot of bad words on it. It was something he was working on for my class. And this other teacher was really upset about this because it was very prominent, these inappropriate words. And he came to me, and I'm never going to forget what he said. He said, David, you need to watch your students. There's women in this class. What if one of them had seen this? And I was like, are they made of glass? Is that really going to be that much of an issue? Like, I get the sentiment, right? I get the sentiment, but that's an attitude that I think is extremely problematic, and it becomes center stage here at the end of Heart of Darkness. Our narrator sees Kurtz's wife, and she's a delicate, dainty little flower. Like, oh my goodness, if the wind blows the wrong way, I might shatter into a million pieces. Oh my goodness. I don't know if I could bear to hear the damn word. Right? Like, it's one of those. And so he sees this poor lady, and he's like, yeah, his last words were your name. Like, oh, come on, man. Come on. Why would he do that? Well, we in civilization, or the people in civilization at this point, I think that we can actually move past the gender debate here just a little bit and look and see what might actually be occurring here. Think for a minute about what the rest of the world is like. We Americans exist in a womb. We have it really good. Even being impoverished in America is much better than being impoverished, like truly impoverished, even in Africa to this day, or even parts of Western Europe, Eastern Europe, excuse me. Western Europe's actually still pretty, is a lot more developed. There are a lot of parts of the world where people continuously fear for their lives. Look at Syria. Look at Yemen. It doesn't matter what your socioeconomic status is in those countries. You're constantly afraid you're going to get blasted. Like, it's the violence, the crime, there's so much that's always going wrong in those places that people have internalized, so they just deal with it. Now, imagine for a minute, as a sheltered American, being dropped into a place where there is constant war, just as a point of fact. Children die every day just because they're accidentally incinerated, right? People are gassed. People are, violently beaten down and killed every day. And it's not even abnormal. That's just kind of like the way that they live. Imagine what your average American, how they would react to something like that. You'd probably shatter like glass, right? It's not something that you would probably be able to handle. And so as much as I hate the ending of this book where he's like, yeah, his last words were your name. And come on, man. I know I did it. I know I told her that. And it's because you can't handle that. You would have fallen to pieces. She would have been completely and totally erased, right? So I think the real wisdom from something like this actually we all kind of are Kurtz's fiance. Like, we care and we want to know, but are you really ready to handle what that truth actually is? Are you really prepared to see the world as it actually is? Or is your brain going to snap in two? It's a question you need to actually honestly ask yourself, because it has a pretty big effect on how you live your life, how you conceive of yourself, how you see yourself. You go into a veritable heart of darkness, you're going to leave a piece of yourself there, right? And it's a poison. It's a contagion that gets out and it poisons others. It destroys others. Wow, it's depressing. So anyway, that's Heart of Darkness. Great book. Messed up book. One of the foundations of one of the most popular and persistent pop cultural norms and tropes that we've ever seen. One of my favorite examples of this is in the episode of Animaniacs. I don't want to go into this episode right now. It's way too dense, but Yakko, Wacko, and Dot end up trying to go down into an abandoned part of the Warner Brothers movie lot to stop a film that's been made for like 20 years. It is an excellent episode, and it parodies Heart of Darkness completely. You can't find it on YouTube. You have to pay for it, which, again, really, really sad, but it is a work of art. It is such a brilliant parody of Heart of Darkness and Jerry Lewis. Yeah, you want to check that out. It might give you a smile if you could ever find it. So to close this video, I want to talk to you guys a little bit about the final exam. Our final exam is going to be 10 questions. 10 questions based upon stuff that were notes in class, character names, plot points. Most importantly, it's going to be very easy to cheat on something like this. Yeah, I know, but I'm kind of thinking it's going to be qualitative stuff, where it's going to be like, how would these two things compare? What does this have to influence of this? And like an example would be, in what way does the main character of Araby compare with the main character of A Good Man Is Hard to Find? See what I'm doing there? That makes it a lot harder to cheat. I mean, you still probably cheat, but it would just, if you're going to work that hard to cheat, I feel like I can almost give it to you, right? So anyway, maybe 10, you know what? Not 10, let's do 6. Each question will be worth about 2 points. Maybe it'll be a little essay question or something. I'm going to leave this test open for 24 hours. It'll be open on May the 4th, the day the papers are due. Just kind of keep things nice and tidy, right? And I'm going to say May the 4th, 5 o'clock that afternoon is when the drop boxes will close. So anyway, pretty straightforward, pretty simple. If you guys have any questions or concerns, feel free to email me. If you email me and I don't respond to you, I am a little buried. Please be patient. But feel free to email me again. I mean, it's very possible that I could lose your email or lose track of where I am in my email. So yes, feel free to email me multiple times. Feel free to text me. Feel free to call me. I'm not going to give you my number right now because YouTube, and that'd be cray, right? Cray. So we are almost at the end, everyone. It is almost over. What a long, strange trip this has been, to quote the Grateful Dead. Anyhow, I think that's all I got for today. There's a lot of stuff I wish we could have done. A lot of things that I wish we could have done with discussions, and I did the best I could with the YouTube videos. would really love to see you guys face to face for American literature. I don't know if that's going to happen, but we'll see. The whole world is standing on its head right now. I really appreciate you guys for sticking with me through this, and you take care of yourselves. I hope to see you soon. It sounds like I'm signing off before the inevitable zombie uprising, doesn't it? Good luck, everyone.